So I just recorded a version of this video a moment ago, and it's kind of looking back on it. I was slightly more feisty than perhaps I wanted it to come across as, so I thought I'd re-record it. This is just literally a follow-up one in relation to the Erasmus deal that Labour has negotiated. They're talking about spending, I think it's 550 million or thereabouts on year one on Erasmus, and then that going up on year two to about 850, 870 million, I believe, somewhere around that. My back of a beer mat calculation on year two would be that roughly you could give every child turning 18 £1,000 for the cost of Erasmus. Erasmus will at best probably allow of low tens of thousands of students to spend some time in the EU at different universities. To give you some idea, the Turing system, which is what we had, cost, I think it was about 100 million, and gave them access to universities around the entire world. It is an ideological decision made by Starmer and co. It is driven 100% about them trying to prove that they're willing to move a little bit closer to the EU, to try and prop up their voters, whilst also placating a European Union as usual. I think it's going to go down like a shit sandwich. The reason is because we're now into that zone where people don't really like the government, and people start looking at the numbers and doing straight up comparisons, particularly because they're raising taxes. So for this one, what people will do is they'll go, for example, well, hold on, you're spending 550 million, so a few tens of thousands of kids can go into universities for a year or so. However, you're also destroying family farms, for example, by imposing this inheritance tax upon them. And these are the adverts and leaflets that Reform and the Conservatives are going to use now around this and every other subject where Labour has made its choice. Because let's make no illusions over it. If you look at the budget, you look at this and so much more, like I said, what you're seeing is Labour making its choice, and it's trying to prop up its core votes. And its core votes, apparently, are basically people on welfare, minorities, and a small percentage of people who go to university. I feel like at this point that maybe Labour should be done for trading standards, because clearly they are, or false advertisement would probably be nearer the point, because they're clearly not the party of the working class. And I think that it was interesting. Now, Twitter's a very poor way of seeing the world, but I thought it was very interesting to see actually the ratio on some of the tweets that were coming out. Let's just say that the overall sense wasn't of mass celebration over this. Labour and its many supporters were getting it full in the neck from people basically telling them what a complete waste of money and time it is. And the time thing is pertinent because, to be honest, this deal is so bad that the next government will have to unwind it. So again, what's happened is Labour and actually the European Union have negotiated a deal that's just not sustainable. And things that are not sustainable will not be sustained. And that's basically what's going to happen. So it's a very, very bizarre thing. It's enraging. I think it's actually shameful, to be honest, completely and utterly shameful. But then I thought the entire budget was largely shameful, actually. In terms of incentive structures and everything else, particularly as someone who, again, like I've said previously, I've never objected to paying tax, and I've always largely been supportive of government orgs and projects to try and give particularly younger people a better opportunity. But as I am also up against it financially, and to be honest, more and more, I think universities are a complete waste of time and money. I'm very, very resentful of this. And no, not because it's to do with the EU, because it is a waste of time and money, and because it is targeting such a small subset of young people. As I said, you could have just given them that money, and the clever ones would have invested it, or maybe given each one of them £1,000 invested into the stock market, or some other investment. Give them a head start in life. That's going to compound nicely over their entire lifetime. but know this. I think for me, like I said, it's again, it's another sign of desperation. It's another sign that this government really hasn't got any ideas, and to be honest, it's starting to realise that it's looking death in the eye. Uh, I think that you're almost certainly now to see a leadership in January, February, and I think Starmer will lose if he even contests it. I don't think the next lot will be any better, whoever they will be. Labour is basically has no talent. It is a very, very thin PLP and an even thinner front bench. And so whoever comes in, even if they are slightly better at communicating, is still going to have that same problem, which is the fact that your average minister is completely unfit to run a McDonald's, let alone a major ministry in a G7 economy. I think also beyond that, I think that whoever comes in, if it is going to be for January, February, they're going to get slept by, like I said yesterday, the likely results from May, which I hope, will be absolutely catastrophic for Labour. I mean, I really, really hope completely, utterly catastrophic. They deserve it. And I think that the problem is as much as anything else moving forward is the Labour brand is fecked, to use a Father Ted expression. It's fact, and this was very noticeable. Now, again, in the last probably 3 or 4 months, there's been a marked change within the media, whereas before it was just right-wing outlets that were pointing out Starmer and Labour's many lies. You're now seeing actual major broadcasters that are doing it. For example, they were interviewing yesterday the chap who did the negotiation of this fast deal, whose name escapes me, and they basically pulled him up on the fact that Labour said they were not going to rejoin Erasmus only last year. So that Sky News, that well-known right-wing broadcaster. So if even they are now starting to pull it up, that's the sign. Pull them up on it. That's really a good sign that the level of discontent is now rising, and that even the broadcasters have had enough of it. And I think that whoever comes in is going to struggle with that very fact, because everyone just it's more and more disregarding the government, and I don't think that changes if whoever's the prime minister, because everyone just thinks that they are endemic liars, because they are. And I think on the EU thing, never ever underestimate that, or never ever think that Labour has really changed. Labour is a Europhilic party, and you only have to look at, I think his name's Tom Baldwin, the Starmer's autobiographer, or stenographer as I prefer to call him, was out banging on about it in The Guardian, talking about rejoining the EU. I mean, they said they wouldn't, but then they've lied about everything else, so you never know. I don't think it's going to happen, because the EU must be looking at our internal politics and thinking, yeah, that's not going to work. However, it's fun to see that conversation is taking place within Labour. Excuse me. I actually wonder, and someone made this point yesterday or whenever it was, wondered if basically maybe it was Tom. Labour minister, ex-minister, who writes in the Telegraph, can't remember, it come to me, who said that it looks like Labour's going to follow the Tories into basically having an out-and-out civil war over decades over the EU. I think that's highly likely, to be honest. I think the only thing that's likely to save them is two things. One, I think there's a very large chance that Labour is going to cease to exist as a political party, or at the very least it will cease to exist to be a significant party. That's wholly a good thing. I actually think the death of the Labour Party, the political death of the Labour Party, is probably a precondition for national renewal in this country. But also is the fact that I think that the European Union is in a great deal of trouble. And I don't think there is enough attention paid to that by people. It is now completely and utterly internally dysfunctional. The economy is rotting very, very quickly. It has now political counter revolutions taking place in all of its major states, with parties there rising who, at best, want to seize control of the EU and remake it into something unlike it is now. And so I think that those two things may save Labour, that basically the Labour Party may cease to exist, and all that the EU that it so utterly obsesses over may cease to exist. But we'll see. But I think that this, to kind of wrap up, I think that this deal is so bad, and people are so angry now over tax rises, that I think that this will just be another signpost along the way, and I think that they will get absolutely no brownie points for it. We'll see. I'm going to speak to my mum later on and see what she says, as I always like to think she's a nice bellwether of how many in the country think. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully this is slightly more calm. The other one was very, very feisty.